Hi, I'm Jay. I want to talk about the Lord of the Rings movies. Have you ever been watching Lord of the Rings and thought to yourself, wow, I love these movies. How does that work though? Why would you do that? Who the hell is that? What do you mean you don't know about Moria? If so, that's fair. There's a lot of lore stuff that the movies specifically are missing, and as a result, sometimes they don't make sense. People make decisions that don't track, or they're in locations that don't make sense for them to be in, or they come back to life and never tell you how, for example. Sometimes they don't make sense. So let's fill in the blanks. In this video, we're going to talk about background, relevant background, not all of it. And the first movie, The Fellowship of the Ring. We're going to try to make this as accessible as possible. Also, if you note this lighting fuckery, we're going to ignore it. Should we play this song? This is my phone case, by the way. Isn't he great? So, Lord of the Rings. To start out, we are on a fantasy continent called Middle-earth. The relevant groups of people here for the moment are going to be elves, dwarves, and men, which means humans in this context, and a couple types of divine beings. Also hobbits, but we'll get there later. So a long time ago, like thousands of years ago, there's this pointy guy. I know you probably can't see any of this clearly because it's far away. This is honestly mostly for me. Pointy guy. His name is Sauron or Sauron, and I have yet to decide which way I'm going to pronounce it. And as you might be able to guess, he's evil. In the movies, he's often a big eyeball. You might be familiar. The movies never really explain what his deal is, which confused me a lot as a child. I'm going to explain it. It is a lot. So J.R.R. Tolkien is the author of Lord of the Rings. In his overall mythology, there is like one main god. In this image, I have chosen to portray God as a nebula from the Hubble Space Telescope. He's doing a bunch of god shit. We're mostly going to ignore him. All you need to know is that he's generally very hands-off. Very hands-off. Subordinate to the main god are these beings called Valar. I would classify them as like archangels. They were sent in by main god to shape the world, etc. Subordinate to them are these beings called Maiar, which would be angels if these guys are archangels. The Maiar are like assistants to Valar, somewhere between assistants and interns. Sauron is one of the Maiar. He's angel tier. Not a god, but very powerful, and still a divine being. Clearly, though, he's become evil. Whoops. You win some, you lose some. Originally, one of the Valar became evil because he was jealous of the main god's power, and then Sauron became evil because he saw that guy, and he was like, you have a point. The evil Vala's name is Morgoth. You don't need to care about him, like, at all. He's only relevant because he was the big bad on Middle-earth for a while before Sauron. But he got, like, destroyed and banished from the planet by the other Valar, and then once he's gone, Sauron takes over. The only reason I'm telling you about him is because there's some stuff that exists because of shit he did during his tenure as Middle-earth big bad. So it might be helpful to have his name up here. But that's the only thing you really need to know about Morgoth. He was in charge of being evil before Sauron was. So anyway, Sauron is not a person. He's a divine spirit. And he has a bunch of super nebulous powers, like mind manipulation and shit, and also smithing, because before he was evil, he was the intern, apprentice, whatever, of the Vala who was in charge of making stuff. Fun fact, the main god is the only one who can bestow, like, consciousness, and he created first the elves and later the men. He did not create the dwarves. The making stuff Vala did that. Straight up just because he felt like it. And then they were given consciousness because the main god was like, oh, those are pretty good. I guess they can have some too. But you have to take care of them. I'm not going to be the one feeding them or walking them or cleaning up after them. Sauron. He's an angel spirit thing and he's bad news. He does manipulation better than your ex-boyfriend. Better than my ex-boyfriend. Now, several thousand years before the start of the story that we're actually supposed to be talking about, Sauron is out on the town being evil. He shapeshifts into a hot person and he goes to visit the elves. And he's like, hey elves, I've been sent by the Valar to help you guys make stuff because I'm like a sick-ass smith. And I'm hot so you can trust me. And this proposal mostly works. He convinces the elves to make a bunch of magic rings that have various powers. They make 16 rings and he's like, these will help you be stewards of the land and so on. But pretty quickly one of the elves is like, actually I think that hot guy's lying. So that elf goes and secretly makes 3 more magic rings. So those 3 Sauron didn't help make and he doesn't know about them. These 19 rings, or Sauron thinks it's 16 rings, will eventually come to be known as the lesser rings of power. They are not known as that yet because there's nothing for them to be lesser to. However, we're going to take care of that right now. After these are made, Sauron goes and secretly makes 1 more ring. It has a bunch of powers, but the main thing it does is give him like corrupting influence over the people wearing the other rings. And because they were made by the elves, those people are all powerful elven leaders. This, of course, was Sauron's real plan all along. He just wants to influence and manipulate powerful people. The ring that Sauron just made is more powerful than all the other ones, and it comes to be known as the ruling ring of power, or just the One Ring. When Sauron makes this ring, he puts like most of his power and will into it. So it is bad news. And Sauron intends to use it to control the elves and break down societies and eventually rule Middle-earth and so on. Classic. However, This plan sucks and it doesn't work because the elves are kind of magic and they can like sense magic shit happening. So they're all wearing their rings. Sauron puts on his ring and immediately all the elves are like, oh, that hot guy's trying to corrupt us. Their solution is to take the rings off. Which works. Like, that's all they had to do. But they do have them on long enough for Sauron to be able to tell that there are 3 extra rings. So Evil Boy now knows about those 3 rings, but he can't control them because he didn't help make them. But also, he can't actually control any of the elves right now because none of them are wearing their rings. So he gets pissed off and goes and kills a bunch of elves. He recovers the 16 rings that he helped make, but he's unable to find the remaining 3. That takes him a long time to do, though. So by the time Sauron has recovered these rings, the dwarves and the men both exist in Middle-earth already. I don't have the exact timeline on that, just know that elves are super, super old. So Sauron is like, okay, fuck, my elf plan didn't work. I guess I'll go try the men and the dwarves. So he pretends to be hot again, and he redistributes the 16 rings that he has. He gives 9 to the men and 7 to the dwarves. Why not just go for an even 8-8 split? Well, there are only 7 clans of dwarves. So he just gives a ring to the leader of each one and then gives the rest to the men. Now, does take 2 of his plan work? Yes and no. It works on the men. He's able to control the 9 important people that end up taking those rings. And those men become like super power hungry and kind of immortal, and they start like fucking up their own kingdoms from the inside. They also like wither away and stay alive but lose their physical forms, which isn't great. We'll talk about those guys a bit more later. Plan take 2 does not really work on the dwarves. They were made by that one Vala to be like tough and strong-willed, and so Sauron is unable to control them. But they are still affected by him fucking with their heads. Sauron's attempt to control them kind of has like a reverse effect, where they become like even more strong-willed and obsessed with the things that they were already into, which mostly includes gold and riches. So basically the dwarves become really greedy. The dwarven clans mostly live inside mountains, and they gradually mine those mountains because as a people, they're master craftsmen like the Vala that made them. When they're being influenced by Sauron through the rings, they get too greedy and start like mining too deep into their mountains. One of the big consequences of that is the basis for The Hobbit, the book. A dwarven clan was hoarding so much gold inside this one mountain that a dragon pulled up and was like, actually get out, this is mine now. Also because of their extreme greed, the dwarves start picking fights about other people's artifacts and they get into various wars about it and about other stuff, but it's a lot of greed. Those various wars and artifact issues and stuff have led to the dwarves having a pretty negative relationship with the elves. Also, a lot of dwarven kingdoms throughout time have been abandoned because of war or environmental issues or monsters. It's usually monsters, I'm not gonna lie. Monsters like mountains is what we've learned. And I do know that. I live in Appalachia. Also, remember how the dwarves have 7 of these rings? 4 of those get destroyed by monsters. Dragons, classic. The wording in the books is that the dragons consumed them, which probably means that whoever was wearing a ring got lit up and the ring melted. However, I choose to believe that consumed by dragons means that the rings were eaten by dragons. I hope they enjoyed them. The 3 to 7 dwarven rings will now never come up again. So Sauron's plan, which sucked, only worked on the men. But he's like, okay, whatever, that's better than nothing. So now he's working towards his dream of trying to rule Middle-earth. Keep hustling, King. During this time, he's living in this Doom Eternal level called Mordor. So let's get Mordor on the map. So Sauron is living in Mordor and he controls this huge army of orcs, which is basically an entire people that is enslaved and also has Stockholm Syndrome. Technically they used to be elves, but a really long time ago they were corrupted by original evil guy Morgoth, so now they're like permanently fucked up as a unit, I guess. Notably, they don't have to be made by like new elves anymore though, they can just reproduce. There are truly so many of them. Also, they have vampire problems, which is to say that they're weakened by sunlight. So we're now about 3,000 years before the actual story starts, and this is the part that's shown in the first couple minutes of the movie. Sauron is at like maximum power, and he and the ring are a huge threat to Middle-earth. To stop Sauron from ruling Middle-earth, a few armies of elves and men get together and go lay siege to his big spooky castle in Doom Eternal Mordor. The goal with the siege is just to get the ring away from him so that he loses a lot of his power and also can't control whoever has these rings at a given time. At the siege is a man named Isildur. By the way, I know that these lines aren't parallel. We're just gonna have to deal. It's good exposure therapy for you. Isildur is the heir to being the king of men. His dad is king at the moment, except not anymore because he dies during this siege. Basically, mid-siege, Isildur becomes the king of men. Also during the siege, Isildur is able to cut the ring off of Sauron, which makes him weak enough to be killed. So, Sauron is killed. After Sauron is dead, this one elf guy, Elrond, who will be on the wall later, but not now. Elrond is like, bro, Isildur, go throw the ring into the local ultra-powerful volcano, which is actually the only place the ring can be destroyed because it was forged in the fires of this volcano. I don't know. The rules are all over the place. But Isildur is like, actually, no, I'm gonna keep it. As you might imagine, this is not the right call. Regardless, Sauron is dead, except he's not actually though, because like we said, he's a Maya, not a person. So this body is dead, but his spirit is still fine, which is basically all that he is anyway. So that means that he just makes himself a new body. which is allowed, I guess. And he still has control over his armies and stuff. But he no longer has the ring. And without the ring, he's a lot weaker and he's going to face a lot of problems. Now, about this ring, Tolkien was purposely vague about how it works and what it can do. So if it seems like I'm skipping those details, it's probably because those details are unclear in general. Honestly, that applies to kind of everything in Lord of the Rings, especially things having to do with magic. In Lord of the Rings, there is no magic system, but magic does exist. So if at any time you're like, hey, what are the rules? I don't know, and neither does anybody else. About the ring, though, just know that, one, the ring is magic, and when Sauron made it, he put the majority of his own power and will into it so that it would be strong enough to control the other rings. As a result, though, if he doesn't have the one ring, a lot of his power is taken away from him and he's weakened. Two, the ring is kind of sentient, like not all the way, but it does have some degree of will. Three, when a normal person, which is to just say not a divine being, puts it on, they turn invisible, kind of. They're on like another plane or whatever, but no other normal people can see them. And four, it has an inherently evil and corrupting influence, and that influence is addictive. So basically what Sauron was trying to do with the One Ring through the lesser rings, the One Ring kind of does on its own anyway. If you're near it, it'll start to fuck with your head. You don't even have to like hold it or wear it. You can just be like in its vicinity. First of all, it makes you obsessed with the ring itself. Like your life goal becomes to get it and keep it at all costs. And then it also makes you super ambitious and power hungry and evil. Regarding that though, it builds on what you already have, which means that what exactly happens to you depends on your desires and your particular definition of power. The ring basically amplifies your pre-existing negative traits to the extreme. And it also makes you believe that whatever you're doing is the right thing. And finally, everything the ring does to someone is a very gradual process. It's not like it just has like aura AoE, turn everyone instantly evil. I feel like I'm forgetting something. Oh, it extends your life for some reason. Why does it do that? So, Isildur has the ring. He starts slowly going evil mode, likely thing for him to do, because men are easily corrupted by power. This is a double entendre, just so we're clear. But actually, one of the most consistent differences between the books and the movies is the portrayal of men. Men are portrayed overall much more positively in the books than they are in the movies, especially regarding like power and corruption. In the movies, it's like every human is weak-willed and desires nothing but power and will immediately become full evil if they get literally anywhere near it. In the books, it's like, well, a whole culture is not a monolith. But also, men do have the shortest lifespan of any of the races of Middle-earth. By a lot. Dwarves live for like 300 years, and elves are immortal unless they're killed. Meanwhile, humans have human lifespans. So the race of men's ability to endure in the world is dependent on what they can do in a comparatively very short period of time. And Tolkien shows the culture of men to be one that really values honor and legacy. So it's not like they're inherently weak or predisposed to corruption. It's just that men tend to have a greater desire for power because they're trying to ensure that their people survive. The books and the movies having such different takes on the cultures of men does result in some movie events not really making sense. The event is still the same, but the way that men act in the movies is so different that the motive isn't there anymore. For example, what's about to happen to Isildur? So at one point, this is way after the siege on Sauron, Isildur gets ambushed by orcs and the ring abandons him, like it falls into a river, and it does that on purpose. That's what I mean when I say it's kind of sentient. The ring's only goal is to just get back to the person with enough power to control it, which at the moment is Sauron, but it doesn't actually have to be Sauron. Like if Morgoth came back and he wanted to control it, he probably could. But anyway, the ring abandons Isildur, falls into a river, and it does that on purpose just to get away from Isildur so that it can start making its way back to Sauron. In the movie, this doesn't really make sense. A person who's corrupted by the ring will be super easy for Sauron to manipulate, which means if the ring successfully corrupts Isildur, it's going to be pretty easy for it to get back to Sauron. Why would the ring abandon him if it was successfully corrupting him, which it clearly was? Especially just to fall into a river, where now nobody knows where it is. In the books, it's because when Isildur was ambushed, what he was doing was taking the ring to the elves to ask for help. And like we saw earlier, it's very hard to corrupt the elves. They're tanks. So basically, the ring chooses that ambush by the river to escape because that's its only chance. It knows that if the elves get their hands on it, it's going to be much harder for it to ever get back to Sauron. In the movies, it's like, well, Isildur is a greedy bitch who's smiling evilly at all times. He would never ask the elves for help, or anyone for help. Also in the movies, when that elf Elrond asks him to throw it into the volcano, he's like, mwahaha, no, I want it for me, so I can be powerful and strong and cool. In the books, he doesn't really know what it is. He takes it as a spoil of war. But back to the river situation, Isildur dies during this ambush. Happens to the best of us. But so nobody finds the ring for a really long time because it's at the bottom of a river and nobody really saw it fall. It stays in the river for 2,500 years. We're skipping forward. At the end of those 2,500 years, we get this dude, Smeagol. He's out fishing and finds the ring. He also kills a guy over it, but we've all been there. Smeagol wants to keep the ring forever and ever, so he takes it and goes and hides in a cave. The ring unnaturally extends his life, so he's in the cave for like 500 years. So he gets all wrinkly and gremlin and he becomes Gollum. All things considered, this is pretty good. After 500 years, he's still got like his physical form and some cognition. Why is Gollum not completely taken over? Because Gollum, or Smeagol, I guess, is a hobbit. Hobbits are technically an old offshoot of men, but hobbit culture is based completely around living a very simple, peaceful life. They really just want to sit and chill and eat snacks. Same. But they're naturally resistant to the evil of the ring because they don't have that much ambition for power that it can build on. Gollum is still fucked up, but he's only this fucked up, despite having the ring for centuries. Whereas those 9 men who were under its influence via the lesser rings got way more fucked up in a shorter period of time. So now we have Gollum. He's got the ring, he's over in the cave. By the way, in the movies, Gollum is played by Andy Serkis, who is a fantastic actor. I think my favorite actor, actually. Bro, the Prison Break episodes of Andor. Also, he's Renoir in Expedition 33. But anyway, because Gollum was a mocap role, Andy Serkis was deemed ineligible to be nominated for an Oscar for this performance. Even though so many people in the industry and on the set of this movie pushed for it. Which, like, are we so serious right now? This is one of the most impressive, iconic performances. Legendary. And he demolished that shit. I love Andy Serkis. Anyway, at the end of those 500 years, we get Bilbo Baggins. By the way, we're going to reshuffle this once we're done with backstory so that we have more room for new people. Anyway, Bilbo is also a hobbit, and he lives in this gorgeous, beautiful, idyllic fantasy version of a New Zealand sheep farm. It's called the Shire. Let's get it on the map. Here's the Shire. It looks really nice, man. Like, what a life. Also, by the way, different colored lines from the map indicate whose place this is. Black means that it's a Sauron zone. Brown means that it's a Hobbit zone. There will be more colors to come. So Bilbo lives in the Shire. At one point in Bilbo's life, a wizard pulls up. We'll talk about him more later. The wizard says, hey Bilbo, there's this dragon that took all the dwarves' gold and we're gonna go kill it. Bilbo kind of says nobody goes anyway. So they grab some buddies and go do that. This is the plot of The Hobbit. At one point during this adventure, Bilbo ends up in Gollum's cave. And the two of them do some really bullshit riddles, which eventually result in Bilbo stealing the ring. As we know, ring evil, so this is bad news. Bilbo does not know that though. He just thinks it's a ring that makes him invisible. So these guys and their friends kill the dragon, and then Bilbo and the ring go back to the Shire. With that, we're jumping another 60 years forward to the start of the first book, although some of this backstory has already been in the first movie. So this has all been backstory. I'll be back in a minute. I'm going to rearrange these a bit. I have a feeling that the lighting between this shot and the next shot is going to be drastically different. Is the lighting super different? I honestly don't remember what it looked like last night. Okay, so picking up here, which is where the books and the movies meet up. We are 60 years after Bilbo got the ring. It's his birthday. He's turning 111, but he's still slaying, looking like he's 50 because the ring is unnaturally extending his life. The wizard who he went to kill the dragon with is in town for his birthday. Good friend behavior. The wizard's name is Gandalf. I'd imagine you know this. He's our bestie. Now, in the context of Lord of the Rings, what is a wizard? There are 5 total wizards on Middle-earth, and all of them are Maiar. So they're the same thing as Sauron, but they're like a specialized set. Like all wizards are Maiar, but not all Maiar are wizards. The 5 wizards were sent to Middle-earth by the Valar to be helpful in the fight against Sauron specifically. They're obviously allowed to do other stuff, but like their original purpose is to fight Sauron. So they've only been here for like 2,000 years. The Valar have kind of like programmed into the situation that the wizards are not allowed to control anyone or try to directly overpower Sauron themselves. Now, what can the wizards do? What abilities do they have? We don't know. Bilbo decides that he wants to go adventuring again.
My microphone got weird here, but Bilbo leaves the Shire and fucks off to an elf town that we'll talk about later. He left all his shit with his nephew Frodo Baggins, who is the actual main character of this series.
Frodo is going through Bilbo's shit and he finds the ring and he's like, hey Gandalf, what is this? And Gandalf's like, So Gandalf knew that Bilbo had a magic ring, but he didn't know which one. Like, he's aware that the One Ring exists, but he doesn't know what it looks like and can't prove that what Frodo has is it. So Gandalf's like, okay Frodo, you hang on to that for a second, don't tell anybody it's here, I'm gonna go do some research. In the movies, this research takes a few months. In the books, it takes 17 years. Moving on. Gandalf goes and engages in the well-observed wizard behavior of reading tomes, and he's like, oh shit, this is the super evil ring. He also finds out that Sauron's army has captured Gollum, who has told them the words Shire and Baggins. And Gandalf's like, oh. Well, fuck. So after a few months / 17 years, Gandalf pulls back up to the Shire and he's like, Frodo, this thing's bad news and Sauron definitely knows that it's here. So you gotta leave. Meet me at this particular hotel called the Prancing Pony in a few weeks. I gotta go talk to my buddy. So Gandalf fucks off to go see another wizard, Saruman. Sauron and Saruman are two different names and people. I do apologize. Gandalf visits Saruman at his tower and he's like, what are your thoughts on this crazy ring shit? And Saruman is like, funny you should mention that. Sauron actually just sent his crew of 9 freaky monsters to go get the ring, and also I'm on his side and I'm putting you in prison. Saruman immediately no longer our friend. Saruman isn't really working for Sauron, he's just kind of allied out of convenience, and because he thinks he can figure out a way to have all of the evil power for himself. If at any time in the movie you see Saruman considering an orb, it's a special type of orb that we don't need to worry about yet. It's kind of just all-purpose crystal ball vibes, except sometimes he also uses it to contact Sauron. Anyway, regarding the 9 freaky monsters that Sauron has sent to go find the ring, they're called the Nazgul, and what they actually are those 9 leaders of the men that originally had the lesser rings, the ones that Sauron was able to corrupt with his original bad plan. Like we said, they lost their physical forms. So they went turbo crazy, and now they're like ghosts, kind of, and they just work mindlessly for Sauron. Also, they ride horses, but I'm unclear on whether or not the horses are ghosts. In the movies, they're spooky horses, but in the books, it's just like these are horses. But how can a ghost person have a horse that is not a ghost horse? I've been thinking about that for like 10 years. So Saruman is putting Gandalf in prison. Meanwhile, Frodo is taking the ring and leaving the Shire to go meet up with Gandalf at that hotel. And he's got 3 Hobbit friends that are coming with him. Their names are Sam, Merry, and Pippin. They're all iconic, and they take on the roles of bestie, smart comic relief, and regular comic relief, respectively. Pippin's not dumb, it's just that in human years he's like 17, so he is dumb, I guess. He and Merry are both dumber in the movies than they are in the books, honestly. For context, Merry and Pippin are first cousins. The 3 of them are going with Frodo for different reasons. Sam is going with Frodo because he overheard Gandalf telling Frodo about the ring. Well, he didn't overhear, he was eavesdropping.
Have you been eavesdropping?
I ain't been dropping no eaves, sir, honest.
He's a gardener and he was tending to plants underneath Frodo's window, and the window was open, and etc. So on Sam's end, Gandalf sent him with Frodo. Merry and Pippin are there because Frodo and Sam ran into them while they were on their way out of the Shire.
What could possibly happen?
So these 2 are kind of just along for the ride, and we're here for it. So the 4 of them are on their way to the hotel to meet up with Gandalf. Unfortunately, as you may recall, Gollum told Sauron's army the words Shire and Baggins, and so Sauron has sent his crew of 9 freaky monsters, the Nazgul, to the Shire to go get the ring. So our hobbits have to evade the Nazgul for a bit, which means that they're now like aware of the danger that they're in. But they make it out of the Shire and they pull up to this hotel to meet up with Gandalf. The hotel is called the Prancing Pony. Let's get it on the map. Blue string indicates that this place belongs to men. I've put both blue and brown string here to mark the Prancing Pony because it's in a town called Bree, which is a place where men and hobbits coexist. Anyway, our 4 hobbits pull up to the Prancing Pony to meet up with Gandalf. And the plan is that from there, we're going to go to this one elf town to see if they can help us with the ring. Basically, we're doing the same thing that Isildur was doing when he got ambushed by orcs. Actually, we're even going to the same town. But the hobbits get to the Prancing Pony, and Gandalf is not there because he's been imprisoned by Saruman. You want a nerd's gummy cluster? Instead, they meet a guy named Aragorn. In the movies, he's played by Viggo Mortensen, which is an instance of absolutely perfect. So the hobbits meet Aragorn and he's like, hey, I'm friends with Gandalf and I've been tracking you guys since you left the Shire to make sure everything's chill. Gandalf's not here, so come with me. I'll take you the rest of the way to the Elf Town. So we get going to Elf Town. At one point, the Nazgul show up again and Frodo gets lightly stabbed, but it gets fixed. The light stabbing is a way bigger deal in the movies than it is in the books. At the same time, Gandalf breaks out of Saruman's prison by deploying the classic strategy, Big Eagle. I don't have a photo of the big eagles, even though I probably should, but just picture like a regular eagle and then make it really big. What's the deal with that? There are these giant sentient eagles in the world that act as messengers between like Godland and the Valar down on Middle-earth. In the movies, Gandalf like summons one to help him break out of prison. In the books, he doesn't have the ability to do that, and the eagle was just there, whatever. Also around this time in the movie, there's a scene in which Saruman is like supervising a bunch of orcs who are doing various grunt work, and in the midst of that, there's a situation, I guess we'll call it, where a fancy new orc hatches out of like a membrane in the ground. I don't know, dude. That didn't happen in the books. This new orc is a member of like a subspecies called the Uruk-hai, which is why I've written orc/Uruks. The Uruk-hai are just version 2. They're stronger and faster than standard issue orcs. Sauron originally made them, but now Saruman is making his own batch and he's improved them so that they have more tolerance to sunlight. So we go from vampire problems with regular orcs to Twilight vampire problems with the Uruks. Saruman is making them because he plans plans to eventually betray Sauron, so he needs his own strong army. In the movie, Saruman says that the Uruk-hai are a cross between regular orcs and goblin men. No idea what a goblin man is. In the book, the exact origins of the Uruk-hai doesn't get explained, which I feel like is fine. Regardless, now we have these fucking things. And Gandalf has successfully broken out of prison via Big Eagle. So all in all, Gandalf prison era was kind of inconsequential, but plot-wise, what it has done is that our team now knows that Saruman is evil, and the other team now know more about what's going on with the ring. I should move Bilbo out of that spot. It makes him look like he's evil. I've moved Bilbo over here so that he can hang out with the other people that are barely or not at all in this movie. Anyway, now that we're out of prison and no longer lightly stabbed, our whole team is good to meet up together in Elftown, which is called Rivendell. Let's get it on the map. Here's Rivendell. Elf places are represented by yellow string. So we've come a decent distance now. Everyone is meeting up in Rivendell, which, by the way, is the same elf town that Bilbo fucked off to earlier, so he's actually also here. All he does while we're here, though, is give Frodo some, invincible chainmail. So we will now no longer be getting lightly stabbed. Anyway, in Rivendell, we meet several characters. First, we meet Elrond, who we've actually met before. He was the elf that told Isildur to throw the ring into the volcano 3,000 years ago. Elrond holds one of the 3 elven rings, one of the 3 that Sauron didn't help make. And his role at all times is just to have infinite information and occasionally tell us some of it. We also find out that Elrond basically raised Aragorn. So Aragorn is a human, but he grew up here, in Rivendell with the elves. Next, we meet Legolas and Gimli. They are an elf and a dwarf, and they fill the roles of Twink and Redhead, respectively. They also hate each other because if you remember, elves and dwarves have some mutual beef going on.
The ring must be destroyed.
I suppose you think you're the one to do it.
However, they're both iconic, and the storyline that they're in during the second book/movie is the best storyline in the trilogy, argue with the wall. I'm moving Sam over here for symmetry purposes. And finally, we meet Boromir, who is going to require us to learn more lore. So in this story, there are 2 important kingdoms of men. They're called Rohan and Gondor. I'm gonna put their names here, but I'm not putting them on the map for now, because in this movie, we're not actually going to either of those places. The relevant one here is Gondor. Boromir is the son of the guy who's in charge of Gondor. That guy, though, is not the king. There is no king at the moment, so Boromir's dad is the steward of Gondor. He's a de facto leader, but he is still a leader, which means that Boromir is effectively the heir to being in charge of Gondor. Now, why is there no king of Gondor? Well, we had one, but he died trying to defend the 3rd kingdom of men, Arnor, which no longer exists. I'm realizing that Arnor is how Australians say, oh no. Just for context, Rohan is here, Gondor is here, and Arnor used to be up here. The fall of Arnor significantly weakened the political position of men in the world, although Gondor is still pretty strong. Gondor and Arnor were very closely allied. Rohan is a much newer kingdom. When Arnor fell, Rohan still didn't exist yet. So for a while, Gondor was the last remaining stronghold of men. The last king of Gondor, the one who died, had no children. And this world is really into the rightful line of kings or whatever. This dude died 1,000 years ago, and there were no heirs to take his place, which for some reason means nobody took his place. So Gondor has just been kingless that whole time. As a result of this variety of happenings, Gondor is nowhere close to its former glory. It's still pretty strong, but it used to be crazy. But it does have a steward who's mostly in charge, and that's Boromir's dad. So, looping back, Legolas, Gimli, Boromir. Now, in Rivendell, Elrond is hosting a meeting. In the book, this meeting is a 50-page chapter. Truly so brutal. The point of this meeting is that we're trying to decide how to get the ring the rest of the way to that one volcano where we can destroy it. Everyone fights over this for a while. They also fight over whether or not the ring should be destroyed at all. Because people are well, we could use it to help us. No, we cannot. The movies imply that the ring only listens to Sauron, but that's not the case in the books. In the books, it's just that Sauron is a being with a will powerful enough to actually control the ring, rather than be controlled by the ring. Shockingly, the meeting eventually decides that we are going to take it to the volcano, and Frodo is going to be the one to do it. And he's bringing 8 other people with him to help because he has no skills. So this group is called the Fellowship of the Ring, and it is the 4 hobbits, so Frodo, Merry, Pippin, Sam, and then Gandalf, Aragorn, Legolas, Gimli, and Boromir. The last thing we have to do before leaving Rivendell is find out that Aragorn is actually the only living descendant of Isildur. Remember when I said that Isildur was the king of men? Being the king of men means that he was king of Gondor and of Arnor, which existed at the time. Like we said, when the most recent king of Gondor died, he had no direct heirs. But Aragorn is still part of Isildur's bloodline, which means that technically Aragorn is the rightful king of Gondor and of Arnor, but it doesn't exist, so we're not worried about that at the moment. The way Aragorn handles his rightful king situation is one of the biggest differences between the books and the movies. In both, he doesn't find out about his lineage until he's like 20 years old. And then in the movies, Aragorn is like, actually, fuck that. I don't want to be king. Clearly, my ancestors sucked at having power and got corrupted by the ring, so I'm scared I'm going to be a terrible leader. In the books, he's like apprehensive about potentially being king, but he accepts it. Also in the books, though, his big motivation for being king is the fact that he's in love with Elrond's daughter, which is kind of weird because Elrond raised Aragorn, but also the daughter is like 3,000 years old, so it's not like they grew up as siblings, I guess. Anyway, Elrond's daughter's name is Arwen, and she's given even less to do in the books than she is in the movies. Her helping Frodo doesn't happen in the books. Arwen is nonetheless more important in the books, but only in terms of being a source of motivation for Aragorn. I don't think these movies would pass the Bechdel test. The books definitely would not. Actually, the second movie might pass the Bechdel test. There's a scene where Éowyn speaks to a little girl about soup. The little girl does have a name, I just don't remember what it is. Basically, Elrond is like, well, if my daughter's gonna marry a man, he better damn well be the king of men. Kind of iconic, I'm not gonna lie. And Aragorn is like, well, okay, I guess I'm gonna go become the king of men then, because I really want to marry Arwen. Girl, if he wanted to, he would. In the movies, though, Elrond doesn't give that ultimatum, so that sense of motivation isn't there for Aragorn. Anyway, we'll talk more about that later. So, the Fellowship leaves Rivendell. We are taking the ring to that one volcano that can destroy it, which is in Mordor, aka the Doom Eternal level where Sauron lives. It's also super far away, and we will be walking because for some reason we refuse to get a wagon or horses or anything. Actually, we do have a horse. We have an horse. His name's Bill. He's a pony. Sam is obsessed with Bill, which is fair. They do end up letting Bill go soon because it's going to get kind of dangerous. I would like it to be known that Bill the pony does survive the entire story and eventually meets back up with the hobbits. Anyway, we're leaving Rivendell. We're going to Mordor. While we're on the road, we're bonding, becoming buddies. This only happens in the movie, but one time at camp, Boromir teaches Merry and Pippin how to fight, and it's a super cute scene.
Good. Very good.
Boromir is the #1 Merry and Pippin stan. You forget that Sean Bean is a really charismatic actor because he's always either playing villains or dying immediately. The next stop on our long-ass walk is the Misty Mountains, which is this giant mountain range, and all the shit we need is on the other side. The plan is to go over the mountains via the Pass of Carthros, which is a mountain pass. Let's get it on the map. Pass of Carthros, right here in the middle of the mountains. Technically, we could go around it and cut through this open space right here, but that's even farther away and would also take us really close to Saruman's tower. While we're crossing the pass, Boromir is noticeably a little bit too interested in the ring. It's starting to get to him more so than the others, but it'd be like that sometimes. Also, while we're crossing the pass, it unfortunately starts snowing a lot. It seems manageable until we get like halfway across, and then it's like, okay, the snow is taller than the hobbits, we have to turn around. I'm wearing a hoodie now, I got cold. Continuity. So, we have to turn around, but then how are we gonna get through the mountains?
My mic fucked up again, so this British robot man is back. Anyway, the Pass of Carthros is directly above one of the abandoned dwarven kingdoms.
Because remember, the dwarves live inside mountains. The kingdom is abandoned now. It was called Khazad-dûm. The ruins of it are called Moria. Let's get it on the map. By the way, green lines indicate that this area belongs to the dwarves. The Pass of Carthros is technically a neutral zone, but I've marked it as dwarven because it's right above Khazad-dûm. Khazad-dûm was the biggest and most prosperous dwarf kingdom to ever exist in Middle-earth. And notably, it does not exist anymore. That's because about 1,000 years ago, the dwarves of Khazad-dûm mined too deep and woke up something that was sleeping under the mountain.
Whatever it was that they woke up was spooky and evil, and it drove them all out. However, nobody actually knows what it was because everyone who got close enough to see it was killed. Whoops. It got to the point where the dwarfs were like, hey, so nobody is coming back from the mines anymore, we should vacate the premises.
So Khazad-dûm has been abandoned for a long time, and now the ruins of it are called Moria, which is a thing that the elves started calling it.
I am too hot again and will be removing my hoodie effective immediately.
Continuity. In one of the elf languages, Moria means the black pit, so I guess that's shade.
I hate this microphone. The only thing still in Moria are a bunch of orcs that Sauron put there cause he needed a place to store them. Anyway, if we aren't able to use the Pass of Carthros, then going through Moria would be the next fastest option.
So we decide we're going through Moria, we get the doors open, there's a big monster outside. Again, dwarves have issues with monsters. We run through the doors into Moria to get away from the monster, and naturally it barricades the door behind us, so we're now for sure committed to this route. Moria is probably one of the things that confused me the most when I first saw the movies. In the movie, Gimli is the one who wants to go through the mines even before they try Carthros. Like, he wants to skip the mountain pass altogether and just go straight for Moria. Remember, Gimli's a dwarf. He says that his cousin is in Moria and that the Fellowship would get a royal welcome. In response, Gandalf is like, hey, terrible idea. We're not doing that unless we have literally no other option. And then because of the snow, they do it. In the book, Gandalf is the one who wants to go through Moria. Like, it's his idea. Gimli cautiously supports it. Everyone else is scared and doesn't want to do it because they know that something crazy went down in Khazad-dûm. The movie kind of acts like none of them know that Khazad-dûm is even gone, which would be insane, especially for Gimli. It's been 1,000 years since his kingdom fell. The explanation, which the movie doesn't give, is that everyone does know that this place is abandoned, but about 30 years ago, an expedition went out to try to reclaim some of it. The goal was to start a new colony there. The expedition was led by Gimli's cousin, who actually is one of the characters from The Hobbit. And at first it was successful. The expedition was able to clear the orcs out of a few areas and hold down the fort. And they were sending updates back to their clan. But after 5 years, the updates stopped. It's been 25 years of radio silence from this colony.
And for some reason in the movie, Gimli is still like, hell yeah, dude.
Can't wait to see my cousin go have a good time in Moria. It's gonna be great.
Soon, Master Elf, you will enjoy the fabled hospitality of the dwarves. Roaring fires, malt beer.
In the books, Gimli's like, yeah, I'm sure he's dead. But he's still pro going into Moria because he wants to know what happened to the colony. So if you watch the movie and you see Gimli being shocked about Moria and you're like, how the hell could he possibly not know that Khazad-dûm is gone? He does know. He's not expecting to find Khazad-dûm. He's expecting to find the new colony. It's just that for some reason in the movie, he thinks that they'll be alive. That whole shit is actually also the reason that Gimli was in Rivendell to begin with. He and his father were there to see if the elves knew anything about what happened to the colony. I don't know why they waited 25 years to go looking. But regardless, if you were wondering why the hell a couple of dwarves were just in an elf settlement by themselves, that's why. So we enter the Mines of Moria. It's a 4-day walk to the other side, which is brutal, plus however long it takes us to briefly get lost. While we're waiting for Gandalf to figure out where we're going, Frodo looks over a ledge and sees a little creature crawling around in the mines. What is it? I'm so glad you asked. It's Gollum. Gandalf says he's been following us for 3 days because he can feel the ring and he wants it. Frodo's like, what the fuck? You knew he was there? Why didn't you say anything? And Gandalf's like, well, my magical wizard intuition tells me that he's got some part to play in all this. So Gollum is chill for now. I think that's the last time we see him or talk about him in this movie. We eventually do find the dwarf colony. They're super dead. When I say we find them, I mean we find a bunch of skeletons. According to the logbook that one of the skeletons is holding, the colony was fine for 5 years. Also, that particular skeleton was also a character from The Hobbit. During those 5 years, the orc population in the mines was growing a lot, but the dwarves didn't know that. The orcs were just waiting because they were amassing a big enough army to take out the colony. It's implied that this attack was orchestrated by Sauron because he's the one that put the orcs in Moria to begin with, but that's never like directly said. The last page of the skeleton's logbook is like, we hear drums in the deep. They are coming. Ooh. Sorry. Immediately after we read that, Pippin knocks something down a mine shaft and it falls like 1 trillion feet and makes a ton of noise. In the movie, it's like he knocks over a whole skeleton wearing like full armor and weapons and shit. In the book, it's a pebble. Like he tosses a pebble and it falls all the way down. Either way, the noise, I guess, alerts all of the orcs that are still living in Moria and they all spawn in at our exact location. Which, if it's the pebble, is crazy. You're telling me that every time a rock falls in this place that's made of rock, the entire army has to summon? That sucks. Also, right before the orcs appear, the Fellowship starts hearing the sound of drums way down in the mines. So that's confirmation that the dwarf colony was also killed by orcs. But we also know that orcs are not the thing that made the dwarves abandon Khazad-dûm. At the moment, though, orcs appear and everyone is now fighting. I want to point out that Sam has a sword but chooses to use a cast iron pan as a weapon, and that is frankly king behavior.
I think I'm getting the hang of this.
Also, it is in this fight that we first learn that Legolas is incredibly OP. And truly, I love that for him. He's significantly less OP in the books, but actually I'm gonna go on record saying that movie Legolas is better than book Legolas. Genuinely, all this man does is look pretty and beat the shit out of everything. Iconic. Anyway, this fight quickly gets to a point where it's pretty clearly unwinnable for the Fellowship. It's just an insane number of orcs. So, it's time to deploy the backup strategy, run away. There's a section with this stone bridge over a giant chasm that we need to get across, and as we do, the orcs mostly stop following us. Which seems like a good thing, but it's not. They're hanging back because of the arrival of this fuck-off big monster. Again, the dwarves have problems with monsters. Now, this monster. It's called a Balrog, and it's the thing that drove the dwarves out of Khazad-dûm 1,000 years ago. Regarding what it is, it used to be a Maya, like the wizards and Sauron, but it was corrupted by original evil guy Morgoth. So now it's like a fucked up fire demon thing. Essentially, it's like how orcs were made, but replace elves with Maiar. Like we said earlier though, until right now, everybody knew that there was something in Moria, nobody knew that it was this. And actually the only ones that even know what a Balrog is are Gandalf, who is a Maia himself, and Legolas, who is like 3,000 years old and definitely knows people that saw the whole shit with Morgoth. Also, it should be noted that the Balrog pulled up because it felt the ring, not because of Pippin tossing the pebble. I have to include that disclaimer as a Pippin stan. Anyway, now is a great time to deploy the backup strategy, run away faster. However, this is difficult because hobbits have very short legs, and also because this is like a narrow-ass, crumbling stone bridge with no railing. This bridge is insane. Why would you have ever built it like this? We're not going to be able to get to the other side fast enough. Gandalf starts fighting the Balrog directly, trying to buy time. The rest of the Fellowship gets across the bridge, and the Balrog waits very patiently while Gandalf monologues at it and does some vague Tolkien wizard shit. Eventually, Gandalf says fuck it and just like magic collapses part of the bridge, at which point we get the very iconic
You shall not pass!
So the bridge breaks, falls into the mines below, the Balrog falls with it, everything is good. Until 4 seconds later when the Balrog does the Ariana Grande and activates the whip that it for some reason has, and it grabs Gandalf and it's like yoink, and Gandalf falls with it. The last thing he does is tell everyone else to run away, so we do. With the Balrog gone, the rest of the Fellowship is able to make it the last stretch to escape Moria, which means we are now on the other side of the Misty Mountains. We are also now having a mental breakdown. Now you might be thinking, well yeah, Gandalf fell, but this is a movie. They might have turned off fall damage. But you're forgetting this is a movie based on a book from 1954. They hadn't invented the death fake out yet. So Gandalf does actually die because of this. But Jay, isn't he in the next 2 movies? Yes. He dies and then gets better. It's a whole thing. We'll talk about it next time. For the rest of this video, though, he's dead, okay? Thank you for your cooperation. So we're having our all-team mental breakdown over dead Gandalf. Pretty fair. And after about 10 seconds, Aragorn is like, okay, y'all, we gotta go because now every evil thing in the area knows that we're here. Also pretty fair. So Aragorn is in charge now, and his first act as leader is to do something that he will do pretty regularly for the rest of the series, which is to say the word Legolas and have shit just get done.
Legolas! Legolas!
Legolas.
You know those days when you're like, this might as well happen?
Usually this happens during fights because Aragorn knows that Legolas is OP, but in this instance he's doing it to get the group moving. Where are we moving to? I'm so glad you asked. Lothlórien, or just Lórien. Let's get that on the map. It might have to go below the map. So we're not moving very far from the other side of Moria, just down here. Lothlórien is another elf settlement, hence the yellow string, but it's much bigger than Rivendell. And it's basically an LED version of the Ewok forest, with a greater focus on architecture. We're going there because if they agree to host us, we will for sure be safe. That's a pretty big if though, because Gimli is with us, and as you may recall, there's a lot of elf-dwarf beef.
I have the eyes of a hawk and the ears of a fox.
But after quite a bit of making fun of each other, we do eventually figure it out and we are allowed to stay. The most important thing that happens in Lothlórien is that we meet Galadriel. Galadriel is one of the leaders of Lothlórien. She's an elf and an absolute tank. She's like 9,000 years old, and she holds another one of the 3 elven rings. Elden rings. Elrond holds another one, and if you're wondering where the third one is, Gandalf had it for some reason. I don't think the movies ever mentioned that though. Anyway, Galadriel is spooky creepy, but also slay, and she has another set of nebulous Tolkien magic abilities. She can do like vague telepathy. We're in Lothlórien for like a month-ish, and during that time, Galadriel has about 10,000 super weird interactions with various members of the Fellowship. The main weird interactions they show in the movie are with Boromir and with Frodo. With Boromir, Galadriel is basically just poking around in his head. She's suspicious of him because she can tell how much he cares about Gondor, and she can tell that there's still a part of him that kind of thinks that he could use the ring to help protect his people and restore Gondor to its former glory. The reason he thinks that is because, like we said, he's been around the influence of the ring for a while now, and it's starting to get to him. So Galadriel is like running mental tests on him and probably dealing psychic damage, who knows. Later, Boromir talks to Aragorn about it, and he's like, dude, I'm stressed out, but I'm glad you're in line to be king because you're chill as hell. The other important weird interaction that Galadriel has is with Frodo, in which Frodo is like, hey, so you're clearly way stronger and more knowledgeable than me. Do you want to take the ring and you can just take it to Mordor and destroy it yourself? And Galadriel's like, yeah, that sounds tight, that sounds sick, that sounds cool. Actually, no, I would definitely become evil. We love self-awareness. And then she's like, dude, the shit with the ring is really not a group activity. You can't keep doing this with the Fellowship, especially because the ring will get more powerful as you get closer to Mordor. Having it around so many people is a terrible idea. Like, one of your friends is for sure gonna end up getting corrupted, and actually, it's already happening. And Frodo's basically just like, yeah, I know, I'll deal with it. Also in this scene, Galadriel has a bowl of water that acts as a mirror, but it's like a magical mirror, and if you look into it, it'll show you like possible futures and or your greatest fears and or whatever it wants to show you at that particular time. Incredibly nebulous rules on this mirror. Regardless, Regardless, Frodo looks into it and sees Sauron taking over Middle-earth, and he also sees the Shire burning. That's in reference to an event called the Scouring of the Shire, which only happens in the books. It's the second to last chapter of the entire series, and it's basically just the hobbits return home to find that the Shire is getting fucked up. It's a very famous literary anticlimax, but Peter Jackson decided to cut it out of the films, and honestly, I can't blame him for that. Even though the hobbits end up taking the Shire back, it is a pretty bleak end to the story. Regardless, it's not in the movies, so we're not going to worry about it. But if you're confused about what Frodo is seeing in the mirror, that's what that is. Also, while we're in Lothlórien, Legolas and Gimli start becoming besties. Does that get explained? Not really, other than the fact that a month goes by where everyone is just kind of sitting around, so you might as well get to know each other. Anyway, these two are divas, love them. Right before we leave Lothlórien, Galadriel gives the Fellowship some presents. I think the only relevant items are lembas, which is like magical elven bread. All elf things have to be magic. And then something that she gives to Frodo called the Phial of Galadriel, which is like a glowing glass container thing. It's meant to be a light in the darkness in that it A, literally emits light, and B, gives you like a feeling of hope when you touch it. It won't come up again until I think the third movie though. Galadriel also gives us all matching cloaks and brooches, so we are now slaying cohesively. We leave Lothlórien via the river Anduin, which is the longest river in Middle-earth. If we stay on it, it'll take us pretty much right up to Mordor. I love a hike that has a river section. I love to portage. Really, I love boats. Don't leave a canoe or a kayak unsupervised, if I'm around. At one point along the river, we pass these giant stone statues of two men. They talk about this a little bit in the movie, but these things are collectively called the Argonath, and they mark the historical northern border of Gondor. It is no longer the northern border of Gondor, but we will get to that next time. The statues are actually depictions of Isildur and his brother, who were co-kings of Gondor for a while. Plot-wise, the Argonath is basically just there to show us that at one point Gondor was very, very strong, and it is no longer that strong. Pretty quickly after passing the Argonath, the group stops at a place called Parth Galen. It's just a forest. We're putting it on the map anyway. I've given Parth Galen blue string because while we are kind of in the middle of nowhere, this is technically still within Rohan and Gondor, which are kingdoms of men. So we're stopped on the banks of the river at Parth Galen. It's very pretty and very nice out, so naturally this is when everything goes to shit. First of all, Frodo is wandering around by himself and Boromir appears. Unfortunately, he's been overcome by the madness of the ring. And he's like, oh my god, Frodo, it's so crazy seeing you out here. How about you give me that ring so that I can save my people? And Frodo is like, no. So Boromir tries to take it by force. Frodo escapes by putting the ring on so he's invisible, and once he's gone, the ring's influence is farther away, and Boromir is able to snap out of it. And immediately he's like, oh, girl, I just did something kind of fucked up. And it's true, he did. As he's realizing that, and subsequently freaking out, Uruk-hai. Naturally, where else would they be? Where did they come from? Saruman's house? How did they get here? Well, Saruman's been tracking the Fellowship with the spooky all-purpose orb thing that still isn't really important yet. Regardless, orcs in Parth Galen. At the same time, Frodo is running away, seeing a spooky vision of Sauron, taking off the ring, and falling off a stone platform like a dumbass in that order. Aragorn pulls up and he's like, dude, are you good? And Frodo is scared because of what just happened with Boromir. Frodo offers the ring to Aragorn as a test, and Aragorn's like, no. And also, I know you have to leave. This isn't working anymore. The ring isn't safe around this many people. So you go run. I'm going to go deal with the orcs that I can hear Boromir yelling about. Good luck in Mordor, don't die. Frodo's like, yeah, okay. As Frodo is leaving, there are a bunch of orcs on his tail. Merry and Pippin see him and they figure out what's going on, and they distract the orcs so that he can get away. Which he does, he gets away. This does have the added side effect of Merry and Pippin not getting away. The Uruk-hai are about to grab them, but Boromir shows up and starts kicking the shit out of everything. Number 1, Merry and Pippin stand. Unfortunately, he gets shot with an arrow. Good news, he gets back up. Unfortunately, he gets shot with a bunch more arrows. And bad news, he eventually stops getting back up. By the time Aragorn gets to him, it's too late. Hobbits have been kidnapped. Boromir's about to die. Boromir tells Aragorn about how he tried to take the ring from Frodo, and he says that he's glad Frodo got away. He feels terrible about what he did to Frodo, and he says that men are hopeless and the world of men will fall, and that Gondor will come to ruin. And in the movies, this is the moment where Aragorn decides to become the king, as opposed to in the books where it's the Arwen thing. Granted, this is also a boost for that in the books, but his main motivation there is Arwen. He's basically like, dude, I'm not gonna let Gondor fall, and you've already redeemed yourself anyway. He's referencing what just happened with Merry and Pippin. At this time in the quest, Merry and Pippin are effectively just two random people. They're just Frodo's friends that are only here by happenstance. Like, they're not carrying the ring, they're not fighters, they don't have a ton of knowledge. There is no righteous or for the greater good reason to die for them, but Boromir did it anyway. He just cared, even though he didn't have to. So he does die here with honor. In the books, Boromir's death actually happens at the very beginning of the next book. I think it works fine fine here though. Also, that scene is so good. I guess Sean Bean does have a lot of experience dying on screen, but my dude is good at it. Did Sean Bean die in National Treasure? I kind of feel like he did. Anyway, Legolas and Gimli find Aragorn, and the three of them have to make a decision here, which is to follow Frodo or to go after Merry and Pippin. They choose the second option because, like we already said, it's safer for Frodo and the ring if he goes alone. Except right as he's about to go, bestie of the universe Sam tracks him down and won't leave him. This is one of my all-time favorite sets of lines in a movie.
I'm going to Mordor alone. Of course you are. And I'm coming with you!
Like, what a ride or die. Absolutely legendary. So that takes us to the end of the Fellowship of the Ring, both the movie and the group. The company has officially split up. Quick final stats. Boromir is dead. Gandalf is dead. For now. Merry and Pippin have been kidnapped by Uruk-hai. We don't know where they're being taken. Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli have resolved to go after Merry and Pippin. And Frodo and Sam have set course for Mordor to destroy the ring by themselves. We will pick up here in the next movie, which in my opinion is the best one. I do think that's an unpopular opinion. Helm's Deep kicks ass, dude. And I like the Ents. Argue with the wall. Thanks so much for hanging out. My other socials are in the description. My Patreon is there too if you want to support me and get some cool rewards, including cut content, because I know I will have cut a lot out of this video.